Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in today. This is a special webinar for us. I think it's fair to say that with one of our enterprise customers called Charter. Charter is an ID services provider based in the United States, based in Canada. Today, we're going to be talking about how Charter moved from a manual incident management process to an automated incident management process with Squadcast. Before we jump into the content, I am going to be introduce all the folks I have on the panel today. Rahul, we can move ahead. We have Chris today. Chris is a service delivery manager here at Charter. He is also the in-house expert today. Chris has over 27 years of experience. He is a leader, he is an idea advocate, and I mean, fair to say he's one of the kindest customers that we have worked with so far. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for joining in. I request you all to ask a lot of questions. Chris has some really interesting things to talk about. Then there's me and Rahul. We are a part of the product marketing team here at Squadcast. If you have attended any of our webinars before, hello, we meet again. Now to talk about what does the flow for the webinar look like. We will first talk about what are the common challenges that we see in the incident management space today. Then we're going to be talking about what's the kind of challenges Charter saw before implementing Squadcast. What was the implementation process like after Squadcast was, onboarded? What are the use cases? What does the incident lifecycle look like with Squadcast today within Charter? We will also be talking about some impact that Charter has seen after implementing Squadcast. And towards the end, we have what I would call a fairly spicy section called Hot Takes, where we're going to be talking about the reliability automation trend. So please stay back till the end. Now, moving ahead, I'll just set some rules for this webinar. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat, and please engage with us. That would be fantastic. You can also send us your questions anonymously to the panelists, to me, to Rahul, or to even Chris. Please ask Chris a lot of questions. He has some really, really interesting point of views. So you would be taking a lot from this webinar. Now, moving ahead and setting some context, we know that incident management is critical for modern businesses today. This is, of course, from the decades and decades of digital transformation we have seen. We know that IT environments have become more and more complex, and that is why service resilience and reliability is key for IT leaders or business leaders, as you can see from some of the statistics that we have here. This, of course, stems from the fact that customers today expect nothing but the very best, and downtime can be really, really, really expensive to businesses across sizes. This further reinstates the fact for the need of a really robust incident management process. Now, I will have Rahul take over, who will deep dive into the incident management challenges that we see today. And we will also have Chris chiming in, introducing Squadcast and also giving us his take. Rahul, over to you.
Amazing. Thanks, Sanjog. So I'd like to start by establishing a bit of context in terms of where incident management is as a space in 2024. So if you take a look at some of the recent reports in terms of what the size of the market looks like, so currently the market stands at over $121 billion globally, and it is expected to reach $208 billion just by 2031. So that amounts to a compound annual growth rate of around 6.2% between 2023 to 2031. So a massive growth there. And I think this fuels into the point that Sanjog was making, that a lot of businesses across the world and across sectors are focusing on increasing and enhancing their spending on incident management software. So that really sets the tone in terms of how important this is becoming. And there are a few key factors that's driving this sort of growth in spending, and just the attention that this a particular solution is receiving from businesses. It's customer expectations is on one side, but you also have a few challenges that arise out of the state of things that exist in terms of current incident management frameworks. There are technical challenges ranging from manual processes, lack of proactive incident management, siloed incident response, and the lack of automation capabilities for repetitive tasks that can eat up a lot of your bandwidth. There are the economic challenges, the downturn and inflation that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, as well as the business transformation that has been happening, in the dynamic setting that we're in right now. Organizational challenges, customer expectations, like Sanjog just covered, the IT talent war, increasing feature velocity, as well as increasing competition that always keeps businesses on the edge, constantly innovating and constantly trying out new services, and also having to worry about keeping them stable. Right. So, having looked at these broad challenges, I'd actually love to hand this over to Chris right now, who'd establish some context about what Charter has been doing, as well as how what these challenges have meant for a charter in an operational from an operational perspective, and how the situation was before they onboarded with Squadcast. Over to you, Chris.
Excellent. Thanks, Rule. So a little bit about charter, and don't worry, I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail here and cover off every bullet point here, but we're a Canadian-based IT solutions provider and managed services provider. We have a full complement of services that we offer our clients, everything from hardware sales through managed services and associated, project security services, GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance, business architecture, IT staff augmentation, and application and DevOps services. So really an end-to-end solutions provider. Specifically within our managed services space, we have, a three-tiered approach for our managed services. We pride ourselves on a 24/7 live answer for support services, which means, you're not leaving messages and getting back to people. You're actually talking to a human that is able to help you. And it's how we've been able to grow our business over the years. A little bit about our environment. So we use a cloud-based PSA or professional services automation. We're very tight into the Kaseya and Datto space. So we use Autotask as our PSA. We have a cloud-based network management or network monitoring and management tool. That tool is Auvik. We have a agent and cloud-based RMM for remote monitoring and management, and that's in the Datto space as well. So Datto RMM, and our incident response now is Squadcast. Prior was a series of manual processes that we'll talk a little bit about in future slides. So our customer landscape is very interesting because we don't have a specific target client. Our clients have expanded beyond our borders, so naturally we've had to expand to support them with their growth. Everything from energy solutions to insurance, financial, manufacturing, hospitality, NFP or not-for-profit, as well as private sector. So, for many of you, this will sound very familiar where, certain segments or certain industries have certain requirements. So I'm very fortunate that I can lean into other services, for example, in insurance, financial, and energy solutions into our governance, risk, and compliance practice because for anybody that is working in those spaces, you've certainly known in recent years that it's become very complicated. Insurance, gaining insurance for your organization has becoming increasingly more difficult. So rather than, IT navigating that path, we can lean into our own experts to help lead that path.
Thanks for that, Chris. Rahul, what do you?
Thanks, Chris. That's great to get a bit of background on Charter as well. Would love to know from you now, in terms of Charter specific context, what sort of challenges were you facing before you decided to, go ahead and onboard with Squadcast?
There were a number of challenges, and we've always been an organization that prides ourselves on support. And that's one of the reasons that we have that 24/7 live answer, so that you're speaking with a human and starting to resolve that incident. The unfortunate thing with that is as our business grew, we outgrew our manual processes. So we didn't have the reach into all of our tool sets that we were required in order to support our clients effectively. We had good processes, but those processes were reliant on manual activities. And those manual activities, when you're in an on-call scenario, it's the same resource doing manual activities that is also trying to satisfy or resolve the incident. So you have the dynamics of trying to fix something while also trying to go through the processes. So, as our business grew, and again, because we've expanded beyond our Canadian borders to support many of our clients globally, we realized that this wasn't sustainable long term. So we started taking a look at, tools and opportunities, but more importantly, we started to define what we had, what we didn't have, and what was a requirement versus what was a nice to have. So, you know, we really kept it simple, and it was very similar to buying a home. These are things that we must have. These are things that are nice to have. And, through the process, we learned a lot about our organization. We learned how time consuming, these manual processes were. But more importantly, as our customers matured and started asking for more information, we realized that quickly gathering reports and data to present to our clients became a problem. So,
Right.
for many of the folks on this webinar today, you'll be familiar with, alert fatigue. So for us, it was a one-to-one relationship. So if you have a response of, let's say, 60 seconds on a connectivity outage, every 60 seconds it would generate a ticket within our system. So and you go, well, that's not too bad until you have a 15-minute outage or a 30-minute outage. So then you have to collapse that child parent relationship in the tickets. So it's a lot of manual activities. If it was a sustained outage, if a client was down, if they've lost their connectivity for multiple hours, you're now into hundreds of tickets that you need to consolidate. So not effective use of people's time. And one of the other issues that we ran into with that is, as you're trying to resolve something, so going back to that scenario of the connectivity, failure and alerts, every 60 seconds, you're getting alerts telling you that something's down. And you're going, well, of course I know it's down. I'm already working on it, but thanks for reminding me. So,
Right.
all these activities that were taking place, on quiet days, being on call was great. On busy and noisy days, being on call made it very ineffective and almost to the point of not being able to effectively complete your job the next day. So we realized that, there were some changes that we had to make to support our employees, but more importantly, to provide a better service delivery to our customers.
Right. Chris, when we spoke earlier, I remember you had mentioned that, when any on-call engineer was doing any incident response, they would be called by a third-party provider and, asked that, hey, are you working on the incident or not? And that was quite disruptive as well. I remember you shared that story with me last time we spoke, right? Um, yeah, would you want to talk about that a little bit before we talk
Yeah,
about?
absolutely. So, our process has evolved a lot over the last year, and a real focus on not just providing better customer service, but also providing some relief to our technical teams.
Right,
So, at the point in time, we had a third party answering service where the alerts would go to that third party answering service. That third party answering service was then reaching out to the on-call technician, who is also the same individual who is trying to resolve the incident. And
right,
the way we had our processes defined, the third party provider needed to have a response and a conversation to make sure that it was being worked on, that it was acknowledged. So during the process, and again, going back to that connectivity alert scenario, every minute, if you're working on, and focused on trying to solve the problem, what it means is, well, I have to stop and take this call and, maybe lose track of what I was working on and lose valuable time in that resolution process.
Right, right. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that context. Now, can you talk a little bit more about what does your incident management process look like today? I know that you have, your events coming in from different monitoring tools. You also have service desk that sort of routes tickets into Squadcast. I also know that you have a pretty solid noise reduction setup, and there are also like a bunch of incident response processes in place. So could you just walk through that?
Absolutely. So, when we take a look at our overall framework, really we're looking at, so, whether it be, core hours or after hours, we're looking for how we identify that alert and how we make sure that it gets to the right person in a timely manner. So, generally we're looking for devices offline, devices not functioning that are very impactful to our customers, as opposed to
Right.
I'm not able to log into, my computer. Obviously, that's a problem too, but at a different scale. So what we've been able to do, and I'll keep referring back to the connectivity, alert scenario because it plays nicely through the remaining slides. We've been able through the implementation of Squadcast to reduce that alert fatigue. So now instead of receiving, and I'm going to go on a worst case scenario, a 2 hour outage where you might receive 120 alerts, that you'll still see that there were 120 events, but you'll see one ticket. There's a consolidation. So, really it's a one-to-one relationship in terms of the technician and what they're focused on.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as we have many clients with, vast and diverse connectivity solutions, you needed to take a few moments to make sure that it was the same site that you were already working on. So, that
Right.
deduplication and suppression, the reduction of noise allowed us to focus on the resolution as opposed to managing the process in the back end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I think do you also leverage multi-channel alerting quite a bit? I know that you're using the mobile app really well. There's like a bunch of other platforms that you use to be notified. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, interestingly enough, this is one of the features that our team likes the most because I
Okay.
think we can all appreciate that people want to receive alerts in different manners. So the flexibility around the Squadcast tool
Mm-hmm.
allows, we can set time frames of, an alert must be responded to within X number of minutes, but the technician can decide how they receive that alert. And there's no limitations to how they receive that alert. So, for example,
Right.
they might receive a push notification, and that's great until you're sleeping because chances are you don't want to have all your alerts on for a push notification. So you
Right.
could have a 2 minute interval for a push notification. You could have a 5 minute interval to receive a phone call. You can build in escalations into that
Mm-hmm.
process. So if it and those escalations ensure that we adhere to our SLOs and our SLAs. So there's a lot of flexibility depending on how somebody likes to work, how they receive how they receive the alerts, whether it be email,
Mm-hmm.
push notification, phone, and that flexibility allows technicians to not be locked into a single solution where I will
Right.
receive a phone call every time. And there's
Mm-hmm.
and it's so easy to go in and tailor and customize that often you can set up profiles based on time of day. So you may want to be alerted in the evening a certain way and after hours in a different way. And it's fantastic in that respect.
Right, right. So, Chris, we also, I think one of the biggest benefits when we spoke earlier is you talked about the fact that, you can now see the entire incident life cycle tracking, right? So right from when the incident is acknowledged to, you are able to collaborate onto the platform. There's also, I think you're also leveraging runbooks quite well. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, runbooks have really revolutionized how quickly we can respond to our clients. And, we take our runbooks, so very specific client information. And, if a ticket comes through for company 123, it will attach the runbook from that company. So within the mobile app, before you're even at a computer and diagnosing a problem, you already
Hmm.
have the details that you need
Right.
to, to support to support the incident. So it could be a case of, we've lost connectivity to this location. That those details could be dictated within that run book, so it's easy access. And through that process, again, it allows you to work almost from a single pane because all of the details are there. That's not to say that we're resolving all of our incidents purely through Squadcast, but what it means is we get a bit of a jump start
Right.
because that time in which you've received an alert to,
Hmm.
the few minutes to get onto your computer and get logged in and connected to things, you can start processing the what ifs and the how I can resolve this in a timely manner. And,
Right.
again, through that suppression of alerts, you can now be focused on the resolution versus the noise that may be distracting you from that resolution.
Right. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, moving on, I know that retrospectives are also something that's really important to you, but I think we have something regarding that towards the end, so maybe we'll not talk about that right now. But from what I know, from what kind of the chats you have had earlier, metrics are really important. They're really important for your client reporting. So could you talk a little bit about that? Rahul, can we go back?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the metrics are absolutely critical, and I think everyone on this webinar today will be able to relate that there's nothing worse than being asked to provide data
Right.
when you don't have it at your fingertips. So,
Right.
we'll talk about this in a further slide, but there's a real-time dashboard that allows you to get your MTTA, MTTR statistics, so mean time to acknowledgement, mean time to resolution, and you can export that into various formats, or you can
Mm-hmm.
simply take screen captures, and it's been a game-changing scenario for us because previously, we were calculating those outages based on ticket times and responses. So there was a lot of focus on ensuring that you were doing all of that ticket work in the background so that we could recover those metrics. Now,
Right.
Squadcast with the integration automatically collects those metrics, and we simply look at graphs and reports. But more importantly, we can see trends. We can look at what the 6-month trend is for all of our clients, a specific client, and look at, it identifies areas of improvement such as trends, maybe run book updates where we need to have additional content to support,
Mm-hmm.
our technicians.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, it's been so good to see your use case evolve, and we hope it further evolves and improves. And yeah, that's great. So far we've talked about the use case side of things. We've talked about a lot of technical things. Now we also would like to get your perspective more from the buyer side, right? Like, what was your decision-making process like? What were the kind of considerations you had, right? What was the implementation journey like once you decided to, have Squadcast as your incident management provider? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, I think everyone has an appreciation that there's a lot of tools, a lot of technologies, a lot of market players in this space. And choosing,
Right.
no different than any other tool. If you select the wrong tool or technology, it's not going to integrate nicely into your environment. So we
Right.
started with a list of, I'm going to say between 10 and 12, because I don't recall the exact number
Oh,
of vendors
that's
that we
that's quite a
started to
bit.
look at. And then we realized, well, rather than looking at vendors, we need to define our requirements first. So, we're all technical people. We like to get into
Right.
the weeds quickly in solution. And
Hmm.
then we realized, well, what is it we're trying to solution? So, I mentioned earlier that it was similar to buying a house where here's the must-have functionalities and here's the nice to have. But what was also important for us was being able to see a roadmap and where that future development was, because there's functionality that we're looking at, 12 months, 24 months down the road that we're not in a position to implement today, but we also don't want limitations within the tool that, in 24 months we're not able to implement. You know, I think everyone can appreciate that, the dollars and cents always are a consideration. So,
Right.
you have to validate the value versus the
Right.
cost. And, I can comfortably say that anyone that is looking at incident response tools in this space, you want to take a very serious look. Feature for feature, they match everybody that is in the market. And from a price consideration, they're considerably lower than a couple of the large market players. And, we can't go into who those market players are, but one of them may rhyme with wager duty. And, they're kind of the 800-pound gorilla that is in the room. And, you know, quite honestly, they didn't want to negotiate. They didn't want to share roadmaps. We weren't a large enough client at, 25 seats to be given serious consideration. And, I think not just the cost and functionality, but I think that relationship that you establish with the vendor is that you want them to be a partner in your organization, no different
Right.
than our customers want us to be a partner. The
Right.
days of only being a vendor are long past us. People want the value add, they want relationships, they want vendors, to understand their business so that they can offer suggestions and solutions and also build their future roadmap.
Right. Right. That's good to hear. Also, a little bit more about the implementation. What was that like? And then maybe we can talk about what's the kind of impact that you've seen with Squadcast, because I know you have a lot to talk there, and you've shared some really good qualitative and quantitative metrics both. So maybe we'll move on to that after this. Yeah.
Well, the implementation, I almost thought my team was joking around with me when they told me how quickly they implemented the solution. It
Right.
was about a day and a half, and we had it fully implemented within our environment. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, the first part. And they're like, no, all of it. It's all
Right.
implemented. We have our
Right.
webhooks integrated into our solutions. We have it integrated into our PSA. And I was pretty shocked. I honestly
Right.
thought that they were just joking around with me, but the implementation was very smooth. We did
Mm-hmm.
run into, granted, we had a lot of pre-planning meetings up to that point, so a regular
Of course.
cadence with the Squadcast team, and we identified any issues in advance. So it wasn't a case of learning along the way. We were already in a trial. We had already found a couple of issues that needed to be tweaked within our environment. So
Mm-hmm.
once we had made the decision to go with Squadcast, the whole process of going live really was no different from our test environment because everything was already implemented. It was updating process in the background, updating documentation, training the team, and deploying the tool, deploying the,
Right.
the mobile tool.
Right. Funny you mentioned that, Chris. We had a customer recently, which had a team of about 400 folks, and they were like, this is like a lot. The implementation is a lot, and I think it's safe to say that we finished the implementation in about 2 to 3 weeks, and that's something we take like a lot of pride in. I'll talk a little bit about what does the implementation look like. We've got a couple of slides ahead, but nice to mention that. I think the implementation is something that we're very, very proud of the way we do it. Now, yeah, we can move on. Talk a little bit about the metrics now. Yeah, Chris, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. So, when you start talking, customers want to know their MTTAs and their MTTRs. So again, mean time to acknowledgement, which, this is the point in which you've identified that there is a problem and you're now working on it, or sorry, you've identified that there's an incident and you're working on it. And then your MTTR is your mean time to resolution. So at
Right.
the end of the day, customers, yes, they often want the technical details, but if they're impacted, they want to know how quickly you're responding and how quickly you're resolving. And for us, because we removed so many of those manual barriers that we had previously, our mean time to acknowledgement was absolutely stunning. And, we had substantial improvements. You can see with a 93% improvement in mean time to acknowledgement. And that directly correlates to the improvement in MTTR, because the sooner you're notified of an incident, that's the sooner that the team is working on resolving that incident. So the these two go hand in hand because
Right.
if if you don't, if you have delays in the acknowledgement, you have delays in the resolution, and both of these
Right.
direct impact contracts. So these are your SLOs and your SLAs, so your service level objectives, and this is how customers often will measure you is, did you respond to all of my incidents that I had over this quarter in the appropriate amount of time? Did you resolve them in the correct amount of time? And
Right.
this is where you can show a lot of trending information. And,
Right.
this is a feel good story, us pounding our chests a little bit and going, look at what we've done. Here's how we're improving that service delivery. And ultimately, our customers benefit from that. And,
Right.
all of the things that we've talked about that are listed on the bottom, from the alerting, the onboarding, the application at your fingertips, these all contributed to those statistical numbers above.
Right, right. Thank you, Chris. It's been amazing hearing all that we've heard from you today. Thank you so much. Before we move ahead into what I call a spicy section, I will talk a little bit more about what does the engagement and implementation model look like with Squadcast. Like Chris said, once you are evaluating the platform, you're on the discovery or the demo or the evaluation phase. You are assigned an account manager. You are also assigned an implementation specialist or maybe specialist, depending on your use case, your org size. And what they help you do is we try to understand your use case from day one, and we try to help you set up Squadcast accordingly. Then let's say once you are really really happy with us and you sort of come on board as a customer, you same implementation specialist sort of continue, and we help you till you're really confident with the setup. You also assign a customer success manager. There's also technical support available from day one, right? Now, I'll just dive a little bit deeper into what does the implementation entail, right? It's a big word. What does it entail? Once you sign up as a customer, there's a bunch of legal documents, and there's like a bunch of vendor documents. All of that is taken care of. But we try to understand your use case deeply. We help you with migration depending on the tool that you're migrating from as well. We help you, like I said before, we help you set up Squadcast depending on your use case. The idea is to, really, really, really make you comfortable and help accommodate your use case. We also help you with any third-party integrations you may need, right? And in case there are any questions, we help you with those questions. There's also training offered, depending on your use case and depending on your need. Uh, and then that's pretty much it. Like Chris said, he has had a good experience with the implementation, and it's safe to say that the implementation is something that we're really proud of doing the way we do it today. Um, Another thing that I would like to point out, right? The reason that we have such a robust implementation process is because A, Squadcast is a click and play tool. B, because we're so keen on understanding your use case from day one, the implementation process becomes fairly organized to do. Now, enough about the implementation journey. So now we will move into much more spicier section, the hot takes, where we're going to be talking about the reliability automation trends. We have Rahul who will lead, and then we have Chris who will chime in. And then please keep all the questions with you. We have a Q&A section shortly following after this. Over to you, Rahul.
Great. Thanks, Anjog. Great. So I'd like to kick things off with, this major trend for us from, a product perspective is like you can see on the screen, the OG Unified Incident Management Platform. And so the reason why we've got this here is because we've sort of championed this unique approach to building a incident management platform over the last couple of years, where we've got all your on-call and incident response needs, the two major chunks all housed under one platform, which allows you to ace your on-call needs. You get to make sure that all your alerts are routed to one central platform, and you can customize your escalation and routing policies, as well as make sure that you notify the right people at the right time, and you're also reducing noise so that you minimize alert fatigue, and you're making sure that your teams are focusing on the most critical of incidents, right? And right next to this, the block you see is the incident response, component of our platform that allows teams to collaborate over incidents. Squadcast is uniquely chat tool agnostic. So we integrate with MS Teams, we integrate with Slack, Google Hangouts. So teams can create incident specific channels on tools that they're familiar with. So that this really makes the entire collaboration process really easy. Our platform also allows teams to automate a lot of their workflows to make sure that the manual and repetitive tasks are taken care of by the platform itself. And retrospectives, right? So it's not just the alerting and the incident resolution side of things that the platform provides for. We also allow teams to conduct in-depth root cause analysis and find out what actually caused the incidents, right, to mitigate the chances of it recurring in the future. And communication is a key aspect for a lot of teams, a lot of businesses out there with, who handle customers across the globe too. So Squadcast allows you to customize status pages for all your different services and share real-time updates to your stakeholders. To advocate a culture of transparency and really win that customer trust as well. So these are the two major components, and the ones you see on the top and right below continuous learning. So it's not just the alerting and response side of things. We also allow you to look at past incidents as well as leverage a lot of insights from all that data you'll be capturing to make data-led decisions to improve your workflows and mitigate the chances of incidents recurring in the future. Again. Automation with workflow. So across now, since all these components sit inside one singular platform, it allows you to connect all your data to one central place and make sure that you're able to leverage all those triggers to trigger specific actions and really reduce the dependency on manual work as well. And the last component on the left that you see is SLOs and error budgets. So we automatically allow you to track, specify first of all what your error budget is, and keep an eye on what your burn rate is, so you can plan and deliver better in the future. So this is a trend that we are seeing, just recently replicated across some of our counterparts in the industry as well, and it allows for a lot of benefits. So just drives home the point that this is something great that we've been able to sort of envision over the last couple of years, and we're really excited to see a lot of adoption in with this particular aspect as well. So yeah, just wanted to talk about this particular aspect. I'd love to have Chris now talk about some of the industry trends that he's seen happening from a user's perspective as well.
One thing that I would like to mention on this slide just before we jump ahead is specific to the SLOs and SLOs and SLAs is you can set these up for individual clients. So yes, you can have a master SLO that is across all of your customers, but you also have the ability to support different SLOs and different SLAs, and this has worked nicely for us because the implementation of Squadcast can spread across multiple teams, across multiple queues. So it's although we use it in the support services arena, we're now starting to see that there's other areas of our business that we could start to use, that we could start to implement Squadcast, because you can treat independent clients with different SLOs and different SLAs.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Chris, and I'm sure that helps with just managing expectations better as well with these individual clients. Awesome. All right. So moving on, would love to learn from you a few of the trends that you've been seeing when it comes to workflow automation.
Absolutely. And this is one of my favorite slides, and I've actually used this through my career. I think we can all appreciate that, after hours support for organizations that, do not have a follow the sun model, it can become very, onerous and burdensome on the employees. And, you can't say that, your employees are your best asset if you have them go through these manual processes. So, that was one of our fundamental principles when we were looking at, how do we make being on call better? And, again, now you're focused on the human element, but you're also focused on increasing your service delivery. So there's no question that, attaching those run books, and I mentioned that previously, gives you a lot of that information right at hand, but you can also trigger based on certain events. So it could pull, from different repositories, different, data sets. It can actually triage or trigger different events depending on how you want to set it up in your environment. So really, it's almost the sky's the limit, because if you think, well, what if I wanted it to do this based on this condition? Well, you can build it. It's just a matter of investing some of that time to determine how it will plug in.
Right, right. And you can do that within Squadcast today with workflows. So it's what to call out. Chris, back to you.
So when we start looking at, where a lot of the trends are, and, I feel that, AI and machine learning are they're kind of the new cloud buzzword. So, you can ask 10 people in a room what AI means or what machine learning means, and we're going to get 5+ different answers. And, from my perspective, as it relates to incident response, it's it's starting to use intelligence based on your existing information. And what I mean by that is, using AI to scrape your PSA, or really your tickets or document management repositories, to find solutions, to look for keywords and find similar instances so that it can drive you to a quicker, resolution. But more importantly, you can start using the AI and machine learning to identify trends. And something very simple, and I'll go back to that connectivity scenario. Why is it that every Thursday at 11 p.m. we lose connectivity for, let's say, 20 minutes to this customer site, or the customer loses connectivity? You can start identifying those trends, and again, that's going back to your root cause analysis. But, rather than rather than the individual doing that manual scraping of data, there's no reason that you can't leverage a lot of the AI and machine learning that exists today. And, a common trend, and I think we've all seen it, and some organizations have taken it to an extreme, is, is really the chatbots, and, trying to enable your customers to find answers. And the reason I say that some organizations have gone too far, I was trying to contact my bank the other day, and it kept sending me, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it's like, well, I just want to talk to a human. I just want to talk to a person. And clearly, their chatbot, its goal was, we will not let you talk to a human.
Yeah,
And, I had to kind of laugh at it, because, you know, it's possible that I could have found my answer, but I didn't. And then when I needed to take that next step, it didn't really exist within the interface. But, common things here, you start looking at the trends, such as, I need to reset my password. It can then look at, well, what IP address are you from? What company name are you? You could have a specific run book or query that would respond with, well, in your environment, you need to go and reset your Azure password here. So there's lots of, I think we're going to see more emergence of this in the future, but also, you know, looking at tickets as they come in. So in our case, and I suspect with most service providers, you can take tickets in through multiple channels. It can be a phone call, it can be an email, or generally on a portal, which is integrated into your PSA. Imagine if you can start having AI determine how to triage that, which means a human doesn't have to look at it. Oh, you're calling from this company. Oh, it's a password reset. Hey, I can put you in this queue. So your teams can just work in those queues, and you can have a little bit of oversight to make sure that things are being prioritized correctly. But that's starting to take, minutes, which is eventually hours, which is, converts to days, on
right,
looking at a ticket and determining where it needs to go in the system.
right, right. There are actually a lot of golden nuggets for service providers in this conversation today. Thanks for that, Chris. Yeah, back to you.
So here's a trend that I saw very early in my career, and as was mentioned earlier, I'm now going into year 28, so I've seen a lot of things in my operational career. But retrospects are definitely making a comeback, and they're making a comeback primarily because customers want, customers want partners. They don't want vendors. So they want answers to the harder questions. Why does this keep happening? What can you do so it doesn't happen in the future? How do we minimize the impact to our business? And, you know, I'm seeing that so many of our clients today, they are demanding, that value relationship. They don't want a vendor because there's hundreds of vendors out there. They want a partner. And a partner is somebody that listens to the challenges, comes up with a plan, comes up with a mitigation strategy, and
Right,
implements to see success and that change. So, something that I've been saying for a number of years is it's not just about keeping the lights on anymore, it's about being efficient. And that
right,
efficiency comes through so many forms. It time saving, it's, the customer experience, but more importantly, it's making showing your customers that they come first and that they are a priority.
right. Thanks, Chris. We're so glad we spoke about postmortems because we truly believe in a blameless culture, the culture of perspective here at Squadcast. So it's good to hear that they are making a comeback, so to speak. Now we'll move to the Q&A section. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat below. You can also send the question. Oh, wow, we have a question. Okay, that was really fast. Okay, how did Charter manage the change within the organization when shifting from manual to automated incident management? Were there any resistances or major concerns from the team, and how were they addressed? Oh, that's a hot question. Chris, do you want to take it? That's this one is for you.
Well, I think that's a great question because change, regardless of the environment, whether it's IT within the business, change is always a little bit scary. You'll have a certain number of folks that go, yeah, I'm excited, I want to change. You'll have others that sit back and go, no, I think it's okay. I understand how it works and operates today. I don't want that change. So the I think I think how we overcame that challenge is engaging the team early, requesting their feedback, understanding what those challenges were, so that we could relate, making sure that we're asking individuals that were on call, how could this be improved versus me as a manager going, well, here's what I think it is because
Right.
I don't live that same experience. So, I think gathering that in, the information from the team where you can very clearly define, your must-haves and your wants are critical.
Oh, that's a fair answer. I think we have another question. Can you discuss? Okay, we are getting a lot of anonymous questions. Can you discuss any specific feedback from your customers regarding the improvement in service reliability? Okay, yeah. So from implement times in service reliability and response time since implementing Squadcast. Yeah, what is the kind of feedback that you've gotten from your customers, Chris? I think we've covered some bit of it before, but do you want to talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah, I can. So, you know, again, we're a managed services provider, and I think we can all relate that nobody calls the service desk or your IT provider to say, "Hey, you guys are doing a great job." They call because something's broke or something's not working to their expectations. And, being able to communicate with our clients that we're implementing new tool sets to, reduce that MTTA and the MTTR, they started seeing visible improvements on response times and on resolution times, which again go hand in hand. So it's an easy conversation when you start seeing those service improvements. The numbers speak for themselves. I can go on about, customers say this and they say that, but at the end of the day, it's really all about, are you improving your service level? Are you more effectively able to handle incidents and respond to them in a timely manner. And again, that all goes back to, to the value. What value does your organization bring to us? Like, why don't I go to another vendor? So for us, this was, being able to show statistical changes on those values speak for
Right.
themselves.
Right. I hope that answers your question. Before we cover the question from Chitra, we will cover this question. What are the key lessons learned during Charter's implementation of Squadcast that could be beneficial for other companies considering a similar shift? I think that's a good question.
That's a
Chris, do
great
you want to cover
question.
this? Yeah.
So part of that answer I've already talked about, which is defining your requirements. More importantly, understand what your current environment is today. You need to meticulously understand how everything works, how it operates, how it's connected. Look at where you can take those manual processes and look for improvement and garner stakeholder feedback. So we didn't work in isolation within our team. We worked within our organization, going to our senior leadership team, you know, talking about use cases. Again, going back to the ROI. Here's how much we want to spend on this tool. Here's the benefits. And what was interesting is, no different than a customer perspective because they're looking at risk mitigation within our organization. They wanted to know, what is the customer improvement? How does this make us better? How does this, how does this allow us to provide better services? So really by taking that outside of our group and looking for, a broader opinion, we were able to really take our IT hats off and look at it from a business perspective.
Right. Right. Is there a framework that you follow, Chris? I see that you have some certain priorities for a lot of your decisions. Is there a framework to this?
We didn't use a formal framework, and within my team we have a number of individuals that have delivered hundreds of projects over
Right.
their IT career. So we were very focused on defining the requirements and defining what we weren't willing to compromise on. And
Right.
what is interesting is we look back at that list after implementation, and not one person identified, well, I want to be able to change how I get notified, whether it be email, text, a phone call. And now that would be something that if we took it away, and we're not, but if we changed that, it would be very impactful because they like that
Right.
flexibility. And
Right.
we that was one of the interesting learnings, is it was never identified as a problem previously or an issue
Right.
because we just assumed that we'll all follow the same workflow and that'll be how it is because that's how it was.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's a shifting mindset of, you have to think about what the art of the possible is. And if you can think of the art of the possible, it can be implemented.
That's Chris has a lot of quotable things to say. That's good to hear. We have. I hope that answers your question. We have one question from Chitra. Chitra asks, "Are you able to elaborate on the ROI Charter has observed since the adoption of Squadcast? Please provide any insights you can regarding operational efficiency, cost savings, or customer satisfaction stats." I think we've covered this fairly, but anything else that you would like to add on here, Chris?
Well, I think it's worth, we start talking about ROI. I think it's worth mentioning, some of your competitors in the space and, the value for the feature set that you receive. And, without going into numbers, I can comfortably say that, the solution that Squadcast presented to us for 25 seats was about 70% reduction over your market competitors. So, getting all of that same value for a lower price where you have all the positive impacts, and again, it always comes down to dollars and cents versus functionality. And, could we have achieved some of these, some or all of these goals with other tools? Absolutely. It would have cost more. It's hard to
Right.
say whether it would have taken more time to implement, but we wouldn't have seen that same ROI as we see with Squadcast. So, what I like about Squadcast is, we can increase and decrease our quantities as our business grows or shrinks. And, we have visibility to what that sunk cost is. It's a cost per user. So as your teams grow, you have the associated revenue increase to support those costs. So it's very transparent.
Right, right. That's good to hear. Chris, I'm just going through the chat box. I think we've covered. Yes, I think we've covered all the questions. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to drop them in the chat, or you could always reach out to us here at Squadcast, or you could even reach out to Chris directly or over LinkedIn. I'm just going to drop your LinkedIn profile on the chat here, Chris, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to share our experiences and, doing a deeper dive into some of our learnings. And this is certainly not the first time that I've implemented a IR solution. It's actually the fourth time in my career that I've implemented from scratch a incident response tool. And I can confidently say I kind of wish I knew about Squadcast a little bit sooner in my career.
And you're only 5 years old, so kudos. And you've had quite a long career. I can't drop the profile in the chat here.
Well, as long as people have the correct spelling, there's only two of us online. The other one is my cousin. So just look for he's an accountant and
Okay.
I'm an IT guy, so I should be pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
Okay. Rahul, are you able to drop the profile in the chat?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think, Rahul, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, just give me a second. All right. I don't think there's any more questions, right?
Yeah, I don't see
All right.
anything else. Yeah,
Okay.
I hope.
I think we
Yeah.
can wrap up the session. All right.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us today. Thank you all for taking the time, and thanks especially to Chris for taking the time to join us today and share those wonderful insights about his journey with Squadcast and otherwise, right? All those wonderful industry trends as well. Really insightful, Chris. Thanks again for joining us today. Right, for everyone who's joined us today, please do check us out. We offer a 2 week free trial that lets you just commence us out the platform for yourself. Or you could also navigate to squadcast.com and request for a personalized demo. Someone from our sales team would be happy to walk you through the platform and explain how Squadcast can fulfill your specific use cases as well. The webinar recording will be shared with everybody who's attended or registered for the webinar shortly. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of today's session. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Great.
everyone. Thanks for
Thanks,
sticking
everyone.
by. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a great day. Bye.